Hi, this is Sven Beiker from Silicon Valley Mobility, and this is Herger from the Last Driver License Holder. And we are here back to talk about Sven's chart of the month on autonomous, electric, and shared driving. So the May chart, what is it about?
Well, the May chart, quite frankly, is something that I wanted to give to Silicon Valley Mobility as his first anniversary gift. And I've been thinking about this quite a bit to bring autonomous, connected, electric, and shared all in one chart. And that chart actually shows different forecasts from consulting firms, analysts, investment firms, researchers, how these topics are going to evolve in terms of new vehicle market share. New vehicle market share, how many vehicles will be fully electric, will be fully autonomous, will be fully connected, or will be just for shared purposes. That's what I put on one side of the chart, which is market projections over the next 12 years until 2030. And the other side, to contrast that a little bit, is economic, projections, actually more the history, like how often do we hit a recession? And then forecasting that a little bit, recession is overdue. And how might that actually affect those trends? That's what it is.
So what were the results that when you looked at the numbers?
Well, the results basically show in all of these trends, connectivity is a little bit different because it's actually much more established. It's beyond 30% new vehicle market share, depending on where you look on the globe. Here in the US, it's now about 50, 60%-ish. But for autonomous, shared, and electric, it's somewhat in between 5 and 30% of new vehicles by 2030 will have those features, like fully autonomous, fully electric, or just for sharing. Quite a spectrum. I'd be very surprised if 30% of all new vehicles will be fully autonomous by 2030, but somewhat within that range. And that's uncertainty, ambiguity, and all of those things, and we shall see.
And what are the factors that will influence if we are reaching near 5% in 2030 or 30% in 2030? What are those influence factors?
Quite a few. It's obviously technology progress, how are we getting into deep learning technologies for autonomous driving, better sensors and all of this. How are we getting into battery technologies and more range, basically, still into those vehicles, faster charging and whatnot. Technology side, also regulation for autonomous driving. I see pretty promising approaches here in California. Other regions as well. My home country, Germany, is not doing too badly in that regard. Others maybe a little bit more cautious. But also regulation for shared mobility. Just last week I went to Canada, Vancouver. They don't allow Uber and Lyft, and there are probably good reasons why not to do this. Still, mobility in Vancouver is not as good as it could be. So regulation plays into this as well. And then consumer acceptance. We obviously had tragic incidents, backlash for autonomous driving. We do see still consumers being not quite there for electric vehicles. So those three coming together, technology, regulation, and consumer acceptance, I think will define how well this is going to play out.
So when we look at the economic data or recession, you said, according to your chart that you also published in this chart of the month, we're basically overdue for recession because recessions come in cycles.
Yes.
Would it be now having a negative impact or positive impact? Because I could imagine if, in a recession time, you can't afford your car, so you're more willing to, use a shared car.
Absolutely. And I really wanted to put in the recession piece, first of all, not to scare anyone, really more like, let's call it the black swan event, which is like unexpected, very rare. I mean, that's a cycle for recessions, but still, we don't really know when it hits. And it can be that car companies, but also tech firms or investors into startups say, let's don't do this anymore because we don't have that budget right now and used to be more like a hobby project anyways. Let's don't do this, but focus on the other one. And the other one can be actually maybe sharing, maybe electrification, because consumers say, I don't know if we're going to keep our third vehicle, so we might actually get rid of it because there are other options. And then actually we see an uptake in shared mobility. Same in electrification. I mean, when the last recession hit in 2008, 2009, the sales in hybrid vehicles went up and fewer SUVs and pickup trucks, and therefore the electrification piece can grow stronger in a recession.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back to the regulations.
Yeah.
We see now the first diesel bans in cities like Hamburg, first streets that have banned diesels.
Yep.
As useful or as much sense it may make or not, you can discuss it, but we see others, Aachen, Munich, Stuttgart, also planning or being forced, being forced or being either through the city administrators going in this direction, that route. On the other hand, we see that California, for example, just passed a legislation that allows autonomous vehicles to drive even without a driver on the road with passengers. Still, they cannot charge you for passenger, not yet, or not bring it to the airport. But it's getting there, just experimental. But where are we here in Europe? How do we see that? How can we influence? How does it influence the development?
Let's see. I'd really like to see regulation as setting the framework for this new mobility. And I really mean it in a positive way, that the tech firms and car companies and whatever, so the innovators know basically what framework to innovate in. Yeah. And regulation is not always perfect. But guess what? Even what we put in autonomous cars is not always perfect. And by far not every electric vehicle is perfect. And even every standard vehicle is not perfect. So I really mean it, broadly speaking, that what the regulators are doing, I do see a lot of good intention, whether that's in California or Europe or China. I mean, it's also in order to protect businesses and everything, but it is in order to make sure that innovation is safe, that economies can develop, and that it's not just Wild West. And so therefore what should be done is really to have regulators be in touch with industry and also startups and really look at what's needed here in order to move towards an, in the end, integrated, autonomous, connected, electric and shared mobility that is safe, that fosters economies, and it's not just, again, Wild West situation where it's like, oh, you know what, now that I'm in this autonomous car, I can even move out much further into the boonies. I don't care if I'm just stuck in traffic, and we'll basically end up with a huge mess. So I think that...
I mean, we want to avoid like a fatality like Uber had in Arizona, where sadly a woman was killed, a pedestrian was killed. We want to avoid that. But on the other hand, of course, we don't want to stifle innovation. We want to understand that, and that means also regulators, in my opinion, and people in, administrating that should have an understanding and see not only the risk but also the opportunities. I mean, autonomous cars are apparently a promise for reducing traffic fatalities once they are really working, driving better than humans. And that, I think, is the task that the regulator has to understand those technologies and work with the industry to...
That's absolutely right. And I mean, again, as tragic as it is, what happened in Arizona, and also the crashes that we see with Tesla. I mean, one not too far away from here on 101 in Mountain View. Tragic. And also, it is just, we all learn through tragedy. Unfortunately, we learn more often through how to not do things than how to do things, especially in this new environment. If we go back to the very early days of industrialization, for instance, people got killed because boiler exploded. And then industry with regulators came up with standards for boilers. Boilers are relatively safe today, but these were monsters back in the days. And also the first automobiles killed many people, and then came up with traffic lights, which we had to understand. What does a red light mean anyways? And it is absolutely tragic, and one cannot say that enough. And also, this is how we all together learn. And we do hear a lot, and we must talk about these tragic incidents, but we cannot talk about all the lives that were saved. my life might be saved at some point because there is an autonomous car. We might hopefully not be able to write about it because we don't know this.
Which brings us also to the point that, for example, a regulator's task could be that those car companies, those startups developing these technologies are sharing their security data or safety data so that not just one fleet, one company makes safe cars, but basically across the industry we get it. And that's enough for the chart of the month. Thank you, Sven Beiker.
You're welcome.
Sven Beiker, Silicon Valley Mobility, Mari Herger, the last driver license holder.